You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. Disney.
Well, it is so good. It's so good to be back here on a Sunday with a Sunday edition. My name's Rick Ferrin. I'm up here in the hub of the universe, right up here in Boston, Massachusetts. And thank you for coming in and being with us today. I think you'll find it fascinating. We got about a half hour of news here before our program comes on at 4. But a few things, we do our news every Saturday night. And sometimes I repeat the same news. But there's so much going on in the Watchtower these days that I really don't. There's so much. I couldn't get to all the news last night. We talked about a number of things, but so many people were calling in and asking questions, and we really can't get to all the news like we used to be able to go through it all. But there's some more news I wanted to discuss with you that I think you'll find rather interesting. I'll tell you, there's a talk that was given at the convention. A talk given to convention concerning sisters and how they have to really be on the lookout for when they're looking for a mate, looking for a spiritual-minded man, or what they should be looking for. I found it really fascinating, the criteria the Watchtower uses for a sister, a young woman, sometimes an older woman as well, that's looking for a Jehovah's Witness mate. But I find it very, very fascinating what the Watchtower actually says would be a qualifying mate. I want you to hear this. As a matter of fact, it's right from, I want to thank the people too where I got this from. I get information coming into the Six Screens all the time, but I wanted to bring this up. Just came in today to me, and I wanted to bring this up because it's something that you're going to find very amusing, and it has to do with the sisters, and it's a special message that was given at the convention for sisters. Now, the sisters had two messages. First of all, they were told about, if you're looking for a marriage mate, make sure you're going to find a brother. I'll read some exact quotes here from the Watchtower. You'll see what I'm talking about. I'll read some exact quotes from the convention. And also, they discouraged the sisters from going to college. Now, this isn't something new. We know the Watchtower has always discouraged everyone from going to college. But at this particular convention, they were kind of mentioning for the sisters, maybe there's a lot of sisters that are thinking about college. Maybe they're looking around and they're not looking at many qualified men that they like to hang up with or get married to. So they're saying, gee, if I don't get a good education, I might be left destitute. Maybe that's what's going through the mind of some of the young sisters in the Kingdom Hall. So the Watchtower now is addressing them and really encouraging them at the convention. Don't go to college. Well, some of them are probably doing it for financial reasons. But, this is the thought that really got me crazy. And it's going to get you guys thinking crazy, too. The speaker at the convention, he said to the sisters, if you're going to really find a mate in the Watchtower, you want to make sure it's a spiritually minded man. And he said, make sure that the brother has privileges. Make sure the brother has privileges. So if a sister is interested in a man in the Kingdom Hall, that brother has to have privileges. And then he went on to say what the privilege would be. He said that, he talked about sisters should be marrying someone who carries a microphone. That's a starting point. Well, right now, they have unbaptized. We just read this a couple of weeks ago, right? From the announcements and reminders in July that they're now using unbaptized brothers. They could be as young as 8 years old to carry the microphone. And they said in that reminders back in July that, sisters, that privilege would be taken away from them. But that's another story. So now they got this talk at the convention saying to sisters to, a starting point here is a brother carrying a microphone. If he's got that privilege, well, he's saying, in fact, in fact, I found this laughable. So the brother, I don't know who the brother was, maybe a circuit overseer that gave the talk, but he says, how can you How can you marry someone who doesn't carry a microphone? How can he carry you over the threshold? I mean, it's just going to be a little saying now in witness world. Are the sisters going to, well, sister, how was that brother? He doesn't carry a microphone. He can't carry you over the threshold. I mean, that is sick, isn't it? The crowd laughed as they normally would. They ate it up big time. And even the young sisters, according to the report coming in here to the 6 screens, the young sisters were looking at each other and nodding in agreement. Can you picture that in the theaters of your mind? How can you marry a brother who doesn't carry a microphone? How could he carry you over the threshold? And then the sisters, they ate it up, as I say. They're looking at each other, nodding, agreeing. Typical witness reaction, right? You've seen it. I've seen it. It's phony. Absolutely phony. So the thing is carrying a microphone in a kingdom hall, does that make a person marriage material? I mean, that would be the question I would ask. Does that make, if I was a sister, could I really buy this bunch of baloney the Watchtower is throwing out at me? Would I start, well, he at least carries a microphone, so I should at least start thinking about him. Now, some of these guys, like I said, carrying a microphone, they're 8 years old. So what's the Watchtower doing to them? Think about it. Maybe, a young little 8-year-old brother is at that convention and hears that talk. Well, he's going to walk around like a little Hitler, right? He's going to walk around like he's king of the mountain. And now are they making is the Watchtower making this 8-year-old boy ready for a long life commitment to marriage? Well, I don't know if they're going that far, but it could be. They could be pruning him. The thing I wanted to mention too, after doing this program for 20 years, I've heard so many people. In fact, one of the very first programs, the first program, actually it would be the third program when we started 20 years ago, that came on the 6 screens was the name of the program was Victims Speak Out. I don't know, maybe some people on our audience today remembers that program, but a woman did the program. It was called Victims Speak Out. Her name was Mary Avalier, I think. I'm sorry, folks, I can't remember her name totally. I think it was Mary. Well, anyway, she was one of the Sopranos. And she came on. She did the program. We had a 6 screens. It was on Tuesday night that she used to come on. But the reason why I'm even bringing her up is the fact that she was really displaced in the Watchtower. She married this man that she thought was spiritually good, and man, did she get sold down the river. Her whole life was messed up. She had children. She was homeless because she thought she married a spiritual man. And there's probably people listening on here today that have made a marriage in Brooklyn, so to speak, and their marriages are dissolved today in bad shape. So, I mean, I have to say, how dumb is it? How dumb is it to just marry someone because they're spiritually strong? Well, they carry a microphone. That is not a criteria for marriage. And so many people came on this program in the last 20 years that married these so-called spiritually mature brothers. And, once they got married, the true colors showed up. Some of these people turned out to be psychopathic, seriously. And some of these sisters were abused. And boy, they were conned. They were conned out of their money. And they would blame the woman on so many things. The sister was awful. And then when sister even would go and try to get help from the Watchtower, what do you think they did? They turned a deaf ear. They said, well, you should be studying more, come to the meetings more, out in service. And, then you'll show more concern. Your husband will show more concern for you. That is also a crock of baloney. So I'm just thinking here, is a person emotionally mature because they carry a microphone? Is that the definition of emotional maturity? Because the Watchtower seems to think so. So I wanted to bring that up today because I'm sure that many have thought about it. And it was quite disturbing. But something that even made me more disturbed. In fact, it's an article in the Kingdom Halls today. They're actually studying an article today, and the article is quite well. Again, they're going after people that don't want to believe in the Watchtower. They're giving them terms. Remember, a few years back, we were all mentally ill. We were told that our brains really weren't working well. We're agents of Satan, the devil. Well, now they seem to be coming up with another term for. They don't specifically mention apostates, but we all know who they're speaking of. They're trying to soft pedal things a little bit in view of all of the countries now that are looking into their evil practices. But the word I caught in today's Watchtower lesson, specifically on paragraph 14, the word is contemptible. Contemptible. Well, maybe we have a rough idea what contemptible means. So in paragraph 14, the readers of the Watchtower, those studying in the Kingdom Hall today, they are told to reject contemptible people. So reject contemptible people. Now, then it goes on to give the definition of contemptible. It means, among other things, it means terrible things, worthless. So a contemptible person is a terrible person. They're worthless. They also say that you'd have a feeling of strong dislike and disrespect for them. Yeah, well, that's what the Watchtower is saying. I mean, I'm only thinking, maybe my mind is, maybe I'm running ahead here, as the Watchtower would say, but I'm thinking this applies, well, at least on the surface, to apostates, I would think. But then as I read the article more, it seems like, man, they are really calling so many people contemptible these days. It's not just people who, well, in fact, it says they are people who unrepentantly practice what is bad. Well, I guess me, all those listening into the program who consider themselves apostates, I guess that you would be considered contemptible. Unrepentantly practice what is bad. Well, I mean, really, do we all practice what is bad? Are we unrepentant? I think that's a lie right there. But anyways, it says that a contemptible person would have disrespect for our faith and our belief. Yeah, I'll say it outwardly. I'll put my hand on a Bible and swear to it that I disrespect the faith and the belief of the Jehovah's Witness Watchtower organization. I don't mind saying that. I'm not going to, put a blanket over my head and hide myself saying it. I'll tell you right out in the public. I do disrespect it. So then it says that a contemptible person also is one who would undermine our spirituality. Well, okay. Again, I'll have to bite for it. I am a contemptible person. I would undermine the Watchtower's spirituality. So I find it fascinating that the Watchtower is really having an article like this, because right now they're being scrutinized. They're being put under the microscope by many, many countries. I'm not going to name them all, but Japan is one. We talked about Norway, Belgium, Sweden. We talked about Slovakia. We talked about Denmark. Now, also just recently, Brazil, and now Poland is jumping on the let's get the witnesses under the rug here, and I mean, take them from under the rug and put them out in the open. So now they're beginning to examine the witnesses as well. But when I read an article like this, now these countries right now, by the way, are coming against the Watchtower because of their shunning policies and practices. So, I mean, if these countries are reading this article, I would think that they have no way to go with it, but say, look at you guys. This seems like an organization that encourages hatred. This is an organization. I mean, if I was, in a country putting the witnesses under the microscope for their dealing with people, I would say that this article shows how the organization actually encourages hatred encourages discrimination and abuse toward anyone who disagrees with them. Isn't it sad? Isn't it sad that you have to have an organization like this? I mean, we have, right now, I won't get into politics, but we have a very divisive country. We have the political people going at it tooth and nail with each other. I mean, they're ready to put the boxing gloves on, right? But I'll tell you, it's even worse in the Watchtower. The divisiveness that's taking place in the Watchtower is even worse than the political arena these days. And I know they talk about politics in Washington being in a swamp. I don't know what Watchtower is in right now. I guess we could say the toilet. Maybe that's even a worse place to be, a full toilet at that. But anyways, the Watchtower is determined. They are determined to qualify people according to their standards. They could now listen. It's not just me, and it's not just you that can be considered contemptible. It's also the world, because the world doesn't agree with them either. I mean, you could walk down the sidewalk today in your community and ask anyone. You just go up to them and say, "Hey, sir, hey, miss, do you believe in the Jehovah's Witness organization?" Yeah, you're not going to get them to agree with it. So I guess the Watchtower also could put anyone who does not agree with them is now considered, or maybe they always were, but right now they're considered to be a contemptible person. I mean, really? So wouldn't you say, now, if you were Jehovah's Witness, and if I was still one, and so I'm going over this Watchtower lesson today, and then talking about people who are contemptible, I would probably think of maybe some of the elders in my Kingdom Hall are contemptible. I would think that, covering up, the governing body covering up child molestation, I would say that's a contemptible act. So could they be considered contemptible? I mean, let's carry this to the nth degree. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, as they say. So what about someone in the Kingdom Hall who is deceitful and controlling? Well, we knew many people in the Kingdom Hall that were deceitful and controlling. What about the governing body? I'll go on the record. I'm going to take the blanket off my head. I'll show myself and say it. I believe the governing body is contemptible. Wouldn't you say so? I mean, they're not qualified, in my way, to be uncontemptible or not contemptible. So, yeah, so it can be argued here who the real contemptible people are. And the Watchtower, they're going to constantly be harping on everyone that doesn't agree with them. Is that a sad state of affairs? Is that a sad state of affairs? I mean, what gives? I mean, this is one of the worst teachings of the Watchtower in their culture. This idea of what they do is they actually give people. Now think about this. The Watchtower gives people a license to show hatred toward everyday normal people and feel that they're making God happy. Jesus would have hated this article to begin with. It goes contrary to Jesus' teachings. See, they think they're making God happy by labeling people contemptible. Jesus would have hated this article. Seriously, I'm not speaking for Jesus here, but I know the teachings of Jesus. I know that one of the themes, if you ask people what's the theme of the New Testament, when Jesus really made his ministry and looked for disciples, if you ask people out there, what is the theme of the New Testament? People would say love, love. And the last thing that Jesus said, and he returned to heaven, the last thing he said to his disciples is show love among yourself. That was it. And it just wasn't, we didn't say it off the hook or off the cuff. It was a command. It was a command. Show people love just as I have loved you. Is the Watchtower showing people love by this article? I wanted to bring that up today because I have to tell you, really, when you stop and think about it, it's something that It's bad. The culture, the teachings of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, we just had a man on earlier, and he was talking about a book, 2 books he actually wrote, and how fascinating it really was. And he wrote about all of the things he found wrong in it. There's a lot of things we can find wrong. And look, I'm not sitting here nitpicking. I'm not going to nitpick little things. I mean, sometimes I get accused of that. But I'm not going to nitpick. This is serious stuff. I hope the nations can take a look at this article. Hey, if anyone wants to come in and talk, we got a few minutes left before we go to the Christian court. Anyone have any thoughts on this at all? Are you considered a contemptible person? What do you think? Would you? Well, this man that was on earlier. Let's see. I think we got Sweden coming in here. Is that you, Grace? Go ahead, Grace.
Yes. Well, I think this is a disgusting article, and I really hope the countries look into this also. But I can tell you, I was actually at Kingdom Hall here in Sweden today, and this was not at the door. This was not the greeters at the door. It was inside Kingdom Hall. And this is 2 men that I don't know. These are not friends of mine. They came on to me, and my hand goes out to say hello, but instead they both hugged me. And I know for a fact one is married and he carries a microphone. And I'm still in shock. I mean, I'm not used to this kind of behavior. It's just I can't even talk about it. I mean, well, that's all from me, I guess.
Well, no, stay with me here for a second,
Thank
Grace.
you.
Give me hang in here, because we were talking about this just a couple of weeks ago, that somehow, some way, a lot of the brothers are getting a little huggy. They're getting a little huggy. They're hugging people too much, especially the women, and they're finding joy in doing this. Do you think they were finding joy, Grace, in hugging you? Or were they just trying to show friendship?
I think they just wanted to be friends, but I mean, it's a great shock. I mean, this is not the way Jehovah's Witness way. I mean, what's going on? This is crazy. And you have to realize I am not baptized. I just recently started to go there maybe once a month or something. They don't know me.
Well, that's unusual, Grace. Well, listen, I want to thank you for calling in here. I know you were on late last night on the 6 Screens, and thank you for coming in and being with us on the 6 Screens Network. Always good to hear from you, Grace. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there you go. Well, that's Sweden coming in. Well, we're going to be going to the Christian court here. I want to thank everyone for coming in to the 6 Screens Sunday edition. My goodness, we love putting this program together. We have a lot of people that are now listening in and making comments. I want to thank all those people on Facebook and YouTube for making comments. And sorry, guys, I can't get to you all the time because of trying to control everything here at the 6 Screens. Sometimes I can see some of the stuff. Sometimes I can comment. Sometimes I can't. But thank you. Thank you for at least coming in and being with us here on a Sunday afternoon. So we're going to end the program here. Now, don't head for the mountains. We're going to talk. Well, we're going to the Christian court. Now, you must have some questions, Bible questions or thoughts. Christians do. Christians have thoughts, questions that sometimes are peculiar. But today we have some peculiar questions, and we have 2 scholars that are going to come on and try to answer them. So far, they have not been stumped. Sometimes they disagree with each other, but they disagree in a good way. They can agree to disagree with one another. Let's put it that way. So anyways, we're going to end the program here. Stay with us. The court is up next. And we do thank you for what you do here at the 6 Screens. When you call in, it makes a big difference. And the last one, leaving the Watchtower, please turn off the new light. End the program here. Stay with us.